And what is going on, Team Elite? I am Jeremy Funderburg. I am one of the co-founders and the CEO of the Elite Minds Marketing Agency, here to give you guys another episode of Elite Perspectives. And oh my goodness, do I have an incredible guest speaker for you today. As you guys know, every week I am determined to bring you guys the industry elites. And I don't even know if it gets more elite than this. I have Ben Gay, and let me just tell you guys about him, because he is an absolute industry elite. With over 50 years of experience in sales, he's a salesman, a business owner, a coach, consultant. He's a speaker, author of over 12 books. And he's not just like putting out books, he's best-selling. And let me give you guys just a quick idea about the caliber of sales guy he is. A lot of you guys know I got my start in sales a few years ago. It was mandatory at my first job that everybody reads this book, The Closers. And I have it right here to show you guys.
Oh, that's two. Okay.
Yes, part one, and I showed part two. You can get part one, part two. We'll probably talk about it a little bit. And I encourage all of you guys to get it, because if you're a beginner, it's going to help you. But if you want to take your game to the next level, it is an absolute must. And I have the man himself with you today. So I couldn't have anybody better for you to hear from other than Ben Gay. Ben, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm doing just wonderful. It's an absolute honor to have you on the show today.
Well, I've been looking forward to it, and I'm ready to go.
Awesome. And I'm not even going to add a bunch of fluff, because I just really want to everybody to hear from you and your experiences and your story. So to start off, I just want you to just tell us your story. Who were you as a kid, and how did you end up on this path that you're on now?
Desperation. I was putting a wife through nursing school, and I didn't have any money. So the path I'm on now was literally set by desperation.
Wow.
A quick rundown. I've been, like most of us, we've been selling our parents or somebody on some idea our whole lives. But I got really hooked on selling at age 10, selling Krispy Kreme donuts door to door as a fundraiser. And my father taught me a little script, and which I did at door after door after door. And the end result, I didn't make any money doing it, but I won a bright red Columbia bicycle. And I thought, whoa, selling is more fun than I thought. At age 14, my father suggested I do something other than just sit in the living room and watch television. And I said, well, I don't know what to do. I'm only 14. He said, you can mow yards. I said, okay, I don't have a lawnmower. He said, we have a lawnmower. It's in the basement. You may borrow it. So off I went into the hot Atlanta sun to mow lawns, and I mowed a couple and decided I didn't like that. So that night at dinner, I told my father, this is manual labor in the hot Georgia sun is not my calling. He said, well, selling is. You sold donuts successfully. So here's the deal. You go sell the jobs, tell them they can pay you what they think it's worth after you're done, no set price. Then you inspect the jobs and collect the money. And I said, inspect what job? He said, well, you hire your friends to do it, and you split the money with them. I said, they're not going to do it for half price. He said, I promise you, you will get 2 to 3 times more money leaving the price open at the end than you will by setting a price. So when you split it with them, they'll have the same or more money, and you will have the same or more money, and you won't have had to mow any yards. Fast forward by the end of that season, then each of the next seasons for 3 or 4 years, I had 20, 25 kids working for me at any given time. And I was making as much money as some of the adults in the neighborhood. And again, selling. And then I went to work with my father as a salesman, and a brief time at Macy's as a salesperson, and my father and as a manufacturer's representative traveling throughout the Southeast. But at the time I realized I really needed money, my first wife, who's now passed away, I was putting her through nursing school, and I was making $100 a week. Adjusted for today, that's about $1,000 a week, but still, things were tight. So I got out the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, flipped to the back where I had been told there were want ads, and started looking for something I was qualified to do. I got all the way through the help wanted ads without finding a single thing I was qualified to do. I remember when I got to the P's, it not only said psychologist, I didn't know how to pronounce it, but I knew I couldn't do it, whatever it was. But as I was getting ready to put the paper down, it jumped over into another category called business opportunities. And there was a little ad there. It said, if you know anything about marketing plans, want to make more money, dial this number. I didn't know what a marketing plan was, but I qualified in, do you want to make more money? So I dialed the number. And I, being young and stupid, began to interview the guy to see if he was worthwhile for me. And I was calling from a phone booth. Your listeners may not know what that is, but it was an aluminum box, and you went inside and dropped a dime inside. And the problem with that sound was fine. It always sounded like you were phoning from inside a trash can. So as I got to my fourth or fifth question about him, the gentleman on the other end of the line, Bill Dempsey, said to me, Mr. Gay, I'm not the man standing in a phone booth answering want ads. Where are you? And I told him. He said, good for you, or something like that. You're about 2 blocks from my office, 1447 West Peachtree, Suite 300. You have 10 minutes to be standing in front of my desk, or never dial this number again. He slammed down the phone. So about that time, my running buddy and co-worker with my dad came around, Jimmy Rucker, the greatest salesman I ever worked with. And I jumped in the car like Robin getting into the Batmobile. And I said, 1447 West Peachtree Street. And he said, what's up? I said, we're going to be rich. I just had a feeling that anybody that arrogant had something to offer. So at about 9 minutes, I skidded up in front of this lady's desk, the receptionist. I said, hi, I'm Ben Gay, here for an appointment. And she said, yes, we were expecting you. Have a seat. And I turned around. There was this curly-headed guy sitting there. And I said, hi, my name's Ben Gay. And he laughed. Ben Gay, I'm sort of used to that. And I said, what's your name? He said, Zig Ziglar. I said, with a name like Zig Ziglar, you're making fun of Ben Gay? You got to be kidding me. And we became buddies right then. Zig was 18 years older than I was, and still would be if he were alive. But he had not yet had a big hit. He was selling pots and pans in Columbia, South Carolina. He answered the same ad I answered. So we went into what we thought was a one-on-one interview. It turned out it was a small opportunity meeting for a multi-level marketing company, Holiday Magic Cosmetics, which rather quickly became the largest MLM direct sales company on the planet. But it wasn't then. It was sort of getting rolling. And we both signed up, Jimmy Rucker and me, and Zig separately signed up. And we began a little journey. 2 years later, skipping over a lot of details you don't need probably, 2 years later, I was president of the company. And a couple of 6 months after that, I was a millionaire, which was my goal when I started, up from $100 a week. And we were off and rolling. That day, Bill Dempsey gave me an old scratched up copy of Think and Grow Rich by Earl Nightingale, the record, 33 and the third record, and an old beat up copy of Think and Grow Rich by Dr. Napoleon Hill. Again, fast forward 2.5 years or so, we're sitting in my living room in a big house in Marin County overlooking San Francisco Bay. And Earl, who was now the voice of Holiday Magic, and Dr. Hill, who was now my personal mentor, hired by the owner of the company to help me along. We're sitting there in the living room, and I told them that story, and they said, well, did it help? And I said, well, gentlemen, look around. And they looked around, and I said, and you're both working for me. Yes, it helped. So that was my breakthrough into selling. Public speaking came along when you had to get to the front of the room and explain the business to people. So reluctantly, I did that. And I was off and running. I've been doing that. That was Wednesday, September 15th, 1965. I've been doing that. Different products, different services, different locations, but basically I've been doing that for 55 years. And the Lord has blessed me. I've had a few little ups and downs along the way, as we all do, but basically professional, high-level selling has been a godsend.
Awesome. That is just incredible. I mean,
A fun ride.
I bet. I mean, and it's one thing that stuck out to me that I was like, oh wow. And I wonder if anyone else caught it when you're talking about Jim being the greatest salesman you ever worked with.
Yeah.
And moments later, Zig Ziglar's also in that equation.
Well, I beat Zig in a year-long national sales contest. That's how I became president of the company, by the way. First prize was a mystery prize. Second prize was a Rolls Royce. Third prize was a Lincoln Continental, as best I recall. Next prize was a Thunderbird. And then it drifted on down to steak knives, desk sets, and stuff like that. Well, I won the contest, and I didn't know it, but it turned out Zig and I were dead, and Jimmy were dead tied. And Zig, word reached him he'd won, so he went out with some friends and had a celebratory dinner and party, and I held an opportunity meeting. And the difference in our volumes was that opportunity meeting.
Wow.
I beat him by that much. So they called me out to California. When I got there, the owner of the company, William Penn Patrick, took me out to dinner and all, and, congratulations on winning. I said, well, I still don't know what I won. He said, oh, the mystery prize. Well, and I'd met him before. I'd done a few seminars with him, gotten in the company plane and flown around a little bit, but I was still in Atlanta as an independent distributor. He said, the mystery prize, yes. He said, that is president of the company. And I said, my God, what if somebody had won that you didn't like? He said, I would have changed the prize. I'd have given them a Stutz Bearcat or something, or another Rolls Royce. But I like you, and I think you have a future, so you're going to be president of the company.
Wow. That's phenomenal.
Going back to Jimmy Rucker. Jimmy Rucker was never a great sales trainer. He was an unconscious competent, meaning, he knew what to do and did it, but he didn't know what he was doing. He was just being Jimmy Rucker. And, he is the best thing I've ever written about selling is in the Closers Part 2. You and I talked about this. Mm-hmm. Sales infiltration, the last chapter in the book. That should say at the top of the first page, dedicated to Jimmy Rucker. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Rucker was a sales infiltrator. He's retired now, but was a sales infiltrator in that he became your buddy. He became part of your team, and you tended to do what he told you to do. Mm-hmm. And I'd say, Jimmy, we got to bottle that and so on. It wasn't until years later I wrote Sales Infiltration. But I said, we got to bottle that and sell it and so on. He says, well, just tell them to do what I do. And I said, no, that's the point, Jimmy. They don't know how to do what you do. We got to get inside and come out and tell them what it is you do. So we didn't do that at the time, but I have since.
Awesome. That's cool. That actually brings me to my my next question. And I know that you're famous for having an 86% closing rate. So first of all, is that true?
86%? Yeah. And that's real sales. That doesn't count somebody phoning in. I happen to catch the call and they place a book order or something. That's sales of a $9,500 seminar or a $50,000 consulting job. Or, as someone did the other day, they called to buy one of our books. It was a separate book, but they wanted 50 copies. And I said, well, you've already, it's great. And I know you have 500 people plus. Why would you just order 50? We want to test it. And I said, I got good news for you. Millions of people have tested it before you and I talked. It's tested. Order 500 or just don't bother me. And we were laughing. I know him. And so we went from 50 to 500. That counts in that 86%. And the reason it's 86%, Jeremy, is people just fire off their gun, that old fire, ready, aim. I'm like a sniper. I will spend whatever it takes, sometimes a good deal of time, getting you in position, using sales infiltration, establishing the rules of the game just between you and me, how we're going to operate, and so on. So when I finally pull the trigger, just like a top-notch sniper does, I don't miss. I can almost say I never miss, but sometimes the target just doesn't have the money. I mean, literally does not have the money. We shouldn't have been
Yeah.
talking probably to start with. But of those who get all the way down to my magic close, the closing rate has been 86% for several years. And the frustrating part, it doesn't get higher. People say, you know, rejection bothers me. I said, well, I figure I've made roughly, not counting group presentations to 10 or 15,000 people at once, but one-on-one sales presentations, face-to-face, over the phone. I figure I've made 100,000 sales presentations since that fateful day in Atlanta. I have an 86% closing rate. That's exciting. But that means that 14,000 people listened to the dynamic Ben Gay sales presentation and said no. So, you know, don't tell me no's depress you. I've had 14,000 of them and I'm still standing.
That's cool. I'm glad you bring that up, because I know in sales, a lot of people, they think about that rejection. They're like, oh, well, this person told me no. But I always tell people, yeah, but when you get the yes, you forget all those no's. Like, it doesn't hurt you anymore.
Like they never happened. Yeah. The fear, people say, you know, how come people are afraid to ask for the order? It's the same fear that people, the number one psychological fear supposedly is fear of public speaking, ahead of death by fire. So that gives you some idea. Well, the fear of rejection in selling, the fear of asking for the order and so on, is exactly the reason they're not public speakers either. Fear of rejection. So you fear one person's going to reject you. Stand in front of 10,000, have them reject you. You talk about rejection, that's bad news. So, but that's what it is fear of rejection. Fear of the unknown, of course, is one of the great fears. And then fear of rejection. They'll listen to me. They'll say no. I'll take it personal. They didn't like me. I'm not worthy, etc. In which case, instead, what I do is shake their hand, thank you for their time, try maybe one more close on the way out the door. And then if it didn't go well, whether it's on the phone or in person, I get back in my car or go back up to the hotel room, whatever. I just take those few minutes and really analyze what went on. And if it was something I could have fixed, I make sure I try not to make that mistake again. If it was they just didn't have the money, which really isn't an objection, that's a condition, then we have to take remedial action. And even that doesn't count, because sufficiently inspired, just about anybody can get just about any amount of money. The day Rucker and I shot into that underground parking at the Trust Company of Georgia on West Peachtree Street, we neglected to see the parking, free parking with validated transaction or something like that. If you're there to do something in the bank, this was an office, in the office space. We neglected to see that sign. As we went to leave, we saw the sign, and the $3 they wanted to park there was exactly $3 more than we had. So we pretended like we were talking, looked the other way, and drove right past the guy with his hand out of the collection booth and up onto West Peachtree Street and took off. We didn't have $3, but we did give Bill Dempsey a check for $2,500 within a day or two of that. Now it's $25,000 in today's money. And a week or two later, another $2,500. So two guys who didn't have $3 to park their car were sufficiently inspired, and we came up with $5,000 in a week or two. Wow. So if it's worth the time, sometimes they don't have the money and I don't have the time, we're done. But if it's worth the extra time, remember that just about anybody can get just about any amount of money sufficiently inspired.
I agree with that 100%. And I'm personally the type of salesperson that I'm like, all right, I take 100% responsibility for whatever outcome, and I always tell myself, well, if they don't have the money, it is my duty and obligation to help them. If I believe in my product and services that much, where I know it's going to be a benefit to them, it is my duty to help them figure out the money thing.
And help them not be in that position again.
Yep. So
The current virus thing we're going through, people started going broke. I had clients, friends start complaining about they were running out of money 5 days into the shutdown. 30%, it's estimated, plus of all the restaurants that had to close will not reopen because they were that close. The average restaurant, I'm told, has about a 16-day cushion between functioning and out of money. So I started saying to people, had you known this was coming 5 years ago, what would you have done differently? And they tell me. I said, okay, now it's going to happen again. I don't know what it is, the next flu, the next planes into the New World Trade Center, whatever. It's going to happen again. In my experience, and I've been at this, I was conceived December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor Day. So, and my father said 2 horrible things happened to America that day. The Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and I was conceived. So we've gotten over the bombing. I'm not sure we've gotten over me yet. But I've been through a few things. So since you would have done things differently 5 years ago, if you'd known it was coming, I'm telling your listeners now, it's coming again. So be ready this time.
Yep, I agree. And I think I love it from people in your position. Over time, you've seen it happen time and time and time again. So you know from experience. And then one thing one of my buddies pointed out to me yesterday from an article he read about millennials, he's like, we graduated and went into the working world during the crisis in 2008, and now we're experiencing it again. What are we going to do to prepare for the next one?
Yeah, if you didn't prepare for this one, maybe there's a hint there. Perhaps we could prepare for the next one. And that's the key. It's coming. I don't know what it is, but this ain't my first rodeo.
It is. So another thing I want to really pull out, and I encourage everyone again, like, it's not just promotion because Ben's on here. Grab a copy of the book, read it. I just went back through it. And I was reading, and I even had this conversation with my wife earlier today about sales infiltration. I was explaining it to her. She's like, oh, that's like my boss. That's exactly what he does. He's just so relational. And he builds these relationships where she's like they're in insurance and financial services. She's like, this one guy just bought his 6th policy from him. And I'm like, why do you just keep buying policies?
He's locked in.
Yeah, and that's just the effect of a sales infiltrator. So I just want you to elaborate on the power of sales infiltration and why you would encourage everyone to learn it and discover it for themselves.
Well, I'll tell you, oversimplified, it's about 40 pages long, last chapter in that book. Be sure and get your hands on it. But the oversimplified, most sales situations are team A, the salesperson, against team B, the prospect or existing customer. And they meet and go to war. Time after time after time, they go to war. You bought a car from the same dealership 5 times. You've probably been through that war 5 times because you didn't have a sales infiltrator working with you. A sales infiltrator takes the 2 teams, merges them into team C, in which you are both partners, and you're both have agreed on what the problem is, and you're both looking for a solution. The advantage the salesperson usually has is in this one small area. Holiday Magic was a cosmetic company. Everybody could do the math and do the marketing plan and so on. But in the one small area of cosmetics itself and making money with them, I would say in that area, I'm the resident expert. I know more about it than you do. I'm making, again, adjusted for inflation. I went from making $100 a week to making $40,000 a month. That's not adjusted for inflation. Adjusted for inflation, $400,000 a month in a span of about 6 or 7 months. So in that little area, I could say to my prospect, you know, we're equal partners here. I didn't say team C to them, but we're equal partners here. We're both looking for a solution. But when it comes time to vote in this little area, I know more than you do. So I think we ought to listen to me in addition to you. And that's when the beginning of the 86% closing rate started.
Awesome. And it's so cool. And guys, once again, get a copy of the book. He has a ton of stories in here. He has scripts in here, and it's crazy because it's just an extra 3 to 4 minutes added on to your presentation, and you set the foundation to be locked in for life, where someone else could even come and say, oh, I have the same product or service, I'll give it to you for free. Your customers are gonna be like, nah.
Yeah. No, I deal with Ben Gay, or I deal with Jeremy. I'm locked in and done. Let me tell you a quick, you mentioned insurance. When my father died, he died unexpectedly. We thought in the prime of health at age 60, just put his head down on his desk. I guess had a cerebral hemorrhage or a heart attack. We didn't do an autopsy. Everybody, it wasn't a question. He was awake 1 minute and dead the next. So when I was growing up, I was always told, if anything happens to me, go to my top left-hand desk drawer, and there you will find Phil Gage, G-A-G-E, Phil Gage's name and number. He's with Massachusetts Mutual. And call him, and he will get with you and handle everything. When I was really young, he said he'll handle everything, but later it became he'll get with you. So when my dad died, I was about 30. I went to his office, opened the desk drawer, and there it was, big letters, Phil Gage, Massachusetts. I was born there and I can't say it, Mutual, and his phone number. And I called him, told him what happened. He said, I'll be right there. Phil went with me to the funeral home, to Turner's funeral home. He did, negotiated may not be the right word, but he handled everything. All I had to do was get Dad's favorite suit and bring it to the funeral home. It was all handled. Then Phil said, all right, get through this. Give me his insurance papers. Get through this, and then we'll start gathering up the money, because I know he has several policies. So I did, and I gave it to him. And I was living in California. I had to get back and run the company at some point. And after about 10 days, I'm getting ready to leave. My mother's under a degree of control and security. And I'd noticed that Phil Gage, the check from Massachusetts Mutual, had not shown up. Everything else had. So I called him. I said, Phil, I'm leaving town, and just one last thing. I hate to mention, after all you've done, there isn't a check from Mass Mutual yet. And he said, oh, there won't be, Ben. Years ago, when you had left home, and then when your sister left home, your dad was overinsured. And of all the policies he had, the best one to cancel was mine. Excuse me, I choke up a little bit. The best one to cancel was mine. So we canceled that, I don't know, 5-10 years ago. And I said, but you've done all this for me. And he said, well, the night your dad and mom bought that policy, I said, if anything ever happens to you, I'll be here. It wasn't unless I've told you to cancel the policy, or unless this, and so on. Well, Phil has retired and now is gone. But I sold millions of dollars of insurance telling that story in front of large crowds all over the southeastern United States. Phil told me he had to hire an assistant above and beyond what he had to help control the business that came flooding in, because he'd never heard the term, nor had I made it up yet. Phil was a sales infiltrator.
Wow. That's a powerful story. I hope everybody listening in that's in insurance is listening to that. Everybody who's not in insurance, you have ears to hear to realize this applies to any industry.
Absolutely.
And that's really powerful. Wow. And you kind of mentioned that in the book about the determination to be there for them for your whole career until you're either gone or retired from selling, that you're going to be there for them.
Well, even if I retire for selling, they still have my phone number. It
Hmm.
hasn't changed in almost 50 years.
Oh, wow.
So they can still call and I'll still guide them. We used to have a service for lost pets. It was called Pet Switchboard, and that company went out of business. But it has my old 800 number on the tag. Now all the pets are pretty much dead. That company went out of business 34 years ago. But up until not too many years ago, we'd get the occasional call, Fido is missing. And I said, well, whoever finds him will call this number also. So let me get your name and number and so on. Or sometimes it was the other way around. I was still saving pets one at a time 15 years after the company went out of business. I will be here. It doesn't make any difference what my company affiliation is. When you buy from me, the real benefit, I only sell quality products that are competitively priced, and I try to only work with qualified people. But the most important thing in the package you get is Ben Gay.
Mm,
And that doesn't go away because I change companies. I'm
wow.
still there for you. I maybe can't do anything hands-on, but I can call the person who does and who can.
Mm. And that's powerful. I mean, uh, one of my last like real sales jobs, like where it's hardcore sales, I was selling door hardware, and that was a little bit ago. And the company, they got all their hardware from overseas and China and everything. Well, as COVID started happening, I don't know what the situation was with the company, but I'm guessing they weren't doing too well. And I guess they just stopped answering the phones for their customers. And out of nowhere, I had my old customer base from back then calling me. It was like, hey, I can't get in touch with anybody. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I could trust calling you. And I want to see if you
Oh,
could help.
nice.
And I was there to guide them and direct. I was like, man, I've been working for that company in a year and a half, but yeah, I'm here for you. Let me see what I can do. I'll see if I can get in touch with anybody. I'll call the owners. And I think that's a part of being a sales infiltrator, like you were talking about, and just really building in that relationship and that bond.
Well, you were there, Phil Gage.
Hmm. Exactly. And the relationships were tight. I remember one day we were in a sales meeting and one of my customers called and the owner picked up the phone and he's like, oh yeah, if there's anything I can do for you. He's like, nah, I'll speak to Jeremy. He's like, oh, well, I'm the owner. I can. He's like, nah, just tell Jeremy to call.
Yeah, I'm sure you are, but I deal with Jeremy.
It was just cool to see that type of loyalty in the relationships and the bonds formed.
I have a executive assistant. I thought she was a secretary, but turns out, looking back, she was an executive assistant who also sort of ran Holiday Magic. I mean, she made a whole lot, like the head nurse in a doctor's office. You know, they do a lot of things the doctor doesn't even have to hear about. She knows the answer. She's heard the question 1,000 times. She knows the answer, so she tells you. Anyway, this vice president in charge of sales in the Southwest, Vance Powell, called one day, and I'm talking to him, and he said he had this idea, and I said, "That's great, Vance. We'll do that." And he says, "Okay, put Marty on." Her name was Martha, but Marty was her nickname. He said, "Put Marty on." I said, no, I got it. I'll handle it for you. He said, "Ben, I really want this done. Put Marty on." I tried not to be insulted by that, but I thought, well, if I swap places, I'd want to talk to Marty too.
Mhm. That's awesome. Awesome. Well, I guess next we should just move forward to the next part of the show, and that's a game we like to play called Elite Instincts. And basically, Ben, the way this game works is I'm going to say a word, and you have to respond back with the first word, ideally one word that comes to mind after you hear the word I say. All right.
All right.
All right. Here's the first one. Sales.
Sales, is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Integrity.
Books.
Success.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that in a lot of ways. Success in reading important books. And then for me, having written 24, including ghostwritten, when I think of books, I think of money and success. They've been very good to me.
Nice. Work.
Work, discipline.
Courage.
It sort of comes natural to me, but I guess I'd say practice.
I like that. Investments.
Foresight.
Strategy.
Chess.
Millionaire.
I know I'm supposed to answer with one word, but I'd like to say millionaire doesn't mean what it used to be. Millionaire used to be a lot of money. So it's sort of less than that now.
Nowadays, it's
But
middle class.
yeah. If you live in California and own your own home, you're a millionaire. The millionaire. Success.
Experience.
Invaluable.
Job.
No, thank you.
Entrepreneur.
Excitement.
Motivation.
In spite of a lot of people think I'm a motivational speaker, I'm not as fond of motivation as most people are, or some people say they are. Excitement. And I would add temporary excitement.
Yep, I would agree with that. The last one, Ben Gay.
Husband, one word, husband/father. That's one word because I put the slash in there.
Nice. Where there you guys go. You got to hear from the legend, Ben Gay, the husband, the father, the motivational speaker. And I'm right there with you. I say motivation, like great. You get excited and then it wears off. I think inspiration, that's internal. That keeps you going further.
Yeah.
And like you said with the work part, you said the discipline. The discipline is what keeps you going after all the motivation wears off.
Discipline is the key. Dr. Napoleon Hill, when he worked with me as my mentor, taught me a daily success system. It's adjusted a little over the years with the subject matter, but I still follow it. Part of it is written right here on the calendar next to me. As soon as I cross off this interview, I go to the next item on the list, so on down the list. People say, the night before I plan my day, I planned parts of today a year ago. When I wrote them in the calendar and highlighted them and so on, that's locked in. Gigi and I take 3 to 4 long weekend vacations a year. I can't do 2 weeks. I'm just not capable. But I can do a long weekend over at the coast in Mendocino or over there. Those go in the calendar every year when I get my new calendar. I put those in first, and nothing. You don't have a story or an amount of money that would get me to break that. Because I find if you break it and slide it, well, we'll make it up next month and so on. You don't, and after a while, it doesn't exist. So when I write in Mendocino or a week off or whatever in the calendar, that's like in cement.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I love it. I agree. My wife and I we live by calendars, and our family always want to see us. What are you doing? Come over here. It was like, you gotta get something on the calendar. I can't promise you.
I've been in conversation with one of my business partners in the last protege, the company we formed based on my time with Dr. Napoleon Hill. We'll be in a conversation and we agree to a day or a time or something, and I write it down while we're talking. And then half an hour later, as we're hanging up, he said, "No, when are we going to talk again?" I said, "I don't know. I wrote it in the calendar. It's gone." I can look it up if you want, but my point is that's one of the beauties of operating by calendar. I don't have to remember to do this or have my mind cluttered with stuff. If it isn't on the calendar today, I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Awesome. Well, there's nothing left to do other than to open up the floor for you and just let the people know what you have going on, what should they be looking out for, how you can help them, where they can find you. The floor is all yours.
All right. Thank you. I do sales training in person when that's possible. They say that the airlines are opening back up again. I'm not quite ready to seal myself in an aluminum tube at 35,000 feet with 1 or 2 or 50 other people who've got the bug. So I'm not excited about going, nor are they excited about having the meetings anyway. So it all works out. What I am in the meantime from home, my coaching business, I've taken on a few more coaching clients than I normally would because I'm here. I'm normally gone 24 times a year, and that's really 3 days each time. So I've got some, one day getting there, one day doing the seminar, one day getting back. So I've got about 75 extra days on my hand. I've taken on a few coaching clients. If you want to know about the coaching, go to, I hope that comes up right instead of a mirror image,
Yep.
www.bfg3.com and click on coaching. It explains how I do my coaching business. And love to have a few of you. I limit the number of people I work with, and I don't have an opening right now, but I have reason to believe I'm going to have 2 next week. I think that's true. Retirement and the bug. Retirement got 1 and the bug got another one. And he didn't have the margin he was supposed to have. Then I would encourage you, if you're in selling, if you're not in selling, I'm pretty much done. But if you're in selling, The Closers, Part 1, is the best-selling, most powerful, most popular book on selling ever written. We sold 10 million copies when we quit counting 20 years ago. It's still the classic of the sales world. It is the red raw meat of selling, the kicks, the blocks, the punches, selling the way it really is, not the way we wish it was. And then for the nicer, gentler people, I wrote it assuming you had read Part 1, so I didn't have to cover all that stuff again. I wrote The Closers Part 2, which is the book Jeremy is especially fond of, and it's the book that sales infiltration is covered in the back of the book. And here's the deal for your nice folks. Go to stores, stores.ebay.com/Ronzoni Books. That's spelled RONZONE Books, BOOKS. Go there, and they offer all of my material with special pricing and free shipping. How is that? Do not order at the website. There you'll pay full price and shipping at BFG3. How can Ronzoni Books do that? Well, Gigi, my lovely wife's last name when she was single was Ronzoni. So that's the name, the reason it's named that. And the way she's able to sell my material for less than I can is I have to pay the publisher. I have to store it. I have to pay people in the warehouse to ship it and so on. She goes in the warehouse, steals what she wants, sells it on eBay at discounted prices, then puts it in the shipping stream. And the guys in the warehouse have never had the courage to say anything to her. They don't say it when she steals it, and they don't say it when she puts it on the shipping counter. So she has no product costs and no shipping costs. Order there before I figure out a way to shut her down, because it's coming. So that's pretty much it. Without live seminars, I do coaching, I do consulting, I write books. I'm writing 2.5 right now. And we're looking for authors for another series in the Closers thing. If any of you are listening who have really something strong to offer in the field of selling in a particular category, like the Closers for dentists, that type of thing, we're about to add to that series. So now we have Closers 1, 2, and 3. We've committed to go to the Closers number 12.
Wow.
And if you want to be part of that, jump in. That's a lot. I normally don't do commercials, but since you ask, I'm happy to do it, and I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna try to make sure I get links to everything in the description, so you guys can just click on the link. It'll take you right to them. You guys are getting a killer deal with the books, by the way. I would highly suggest you guys take advantage of that. And one thing I can say has been invaluable for me is just having coaches. And several areas of my life. And if Ben is willing to coach you, I suggest as soon as those slots open up, you take advantage of them. Constantly check with them, because there's nothing that will take your game and exponentially grow it other than working with a coach. And I couldn't think of a better coach you could work with other than
Thank
the
you.
man with the 86% closing rate and years of experience. I mean, guys,
And should you come to me for coaching, first I want to know that you got the closers 1 and 2 at least, because I don't want to spend my time and your money covering things I already wrote down that you can get for little or nothing. So order the books, then tell me you want to be coached.
awesome. So there you go, guys. Order that book, those books, read them, and then reach out to Ben and say, hey, I want you to teach me how I can close 8 of the 10 people I talk to. But other than that, I hope you guys got a ton of value from this episode, and I will see you guys on the next episodes of Elite Perspectives. Oh, wait. You're not done yet. You can't leave. I got one more thing for you. Ben Gay actually adopted a son, and it's an incredible story behind it. But I don't want to tell you all about it. I want you to read it for yourself. He actually came out with this book, and oh my goodness, you guys have to read it. I'm going to put a link in the description below, and I want you to buy this book. It is probably one of the best overcoming stories I've ever heard, ever read, and I know you're going to love it. Buy the book for yourself. Get it for other people. Refer it to other people. Let's change some lives. Hope you guys enjoy it.